Welcome to the podcast. Today we're going to talk about a really interesting topic, and that is puppy mill scams, or basically just the scam of buying a dog online. There's a lot of people who really are looking for a dog, and we can buy everything online now. I bought a car online recently. I would for sure have thought that was a scam, but it wasn't. You buy Amazon, you spend more time, most people spend more time buying things online now than I think ever before. So we seem to think it's safe. We seem to think it's a good idea. We seem to think it's an ethical choice. But when it comes to getting a dog, it's not a good choice. And today in this podcast, I really want to address the hows and whys of that comment from me, that position that I hold. And it really came about, I think it was yesterday or the day before. Janet and I were driving in the car, and she pulled up this article that said, look, there's a new scam, a new puppy mill scam. It was in the Wall Street Journal. I don't subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, so I don't know. She read me some of it. But the basic idea to this was, it was a story they wrote based on a guy who had a 17-year-old dachshund that died. So that's obviously something very, very close to our hearts. And he went to get a puppy from a website, paid for the puppy, and the puppy never arrived. Right? They never got the puppy. So the good thing about that is, let's start with a good thing. And the good thing is that there's no dogs. Right? It's just a complete scam. It's like the old box of rocks scam. I don't know if you guys know that, but years and years and years ago, there was a scam, this box of rocks scam. And what somebody would do, they'd have a van, they say, hey, I got some stereo equipment that I was supposed to deliver, and the people canceled it, so I'm looking to sell it right now. And I got a VCR or whatever it was, VCR or cassette record. Nobody knows what those are anymore, but anyway, it was a VCR. And it'd say, give it to you for $100. And so you'd say, well, what is it? And they said, you'd have the box would show exactly what it was, great, Pioneer or Onkyo or something. And you would give the guy the $100. The guy would hand you the box. He would drive away. You'd open the box to look for your VCR or whatever. And it was a box of rocks. So that was the old scam. So now this here with the puppies, you're looking at a different kind of scam, and that is somebody puts up a website. It's a beautiful website. It's got beautiful pictures on it. And they have you send in the money. And obviously it's not through PayPal or anything like that. It's through another kind of a scammy, kind of a wire or something like that, or gift cards. Really good scamming is when people ask you to pay in gift cards. And then no puppy ever shows up. So by the time you're able to report this, they close the website down. And there's very, very little repercussions that you have. Unless you're paying this with a credit card, a Visa, MasterCard or something, Visa or MasterCard or American Express, you don't have really a way to get your money back. If you wire the money into an account, then that's it. You wired it in. And if you are sending gift cards, those gift cards are sent. So remember that you need to look into this. Buying a puppy is a really tough and important decision to make. And it's something you should really take to heart when you do it. So I am against puppy mills. I'm really against buying dogs online. But there are some ways to do it. There are some breeders that will work online because, it's just the way things are done now. But there's some scams that you should look for. And in those scams are things like, they don't accept phone calls. They don't have pictures of the actual dogs. There's all these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful pictures, which they lift off of Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and all these. Their payment methodologies are really sketchy. They ask you to wire money, like I said, gift card or anything like that. And the prices are often problematic too. Now, a lot of puppy mills, and again, there's two different things here. Puppy mills are one thing, but the puppy scam, where you're not actually going to even get a puppy, is a whole nother thing. If you see a puppy for a few $100, $500, $600 or something like that, either you're going to get a dog that's not very well bred, or you're going to get a scam. On the flip side, you'll see that some of these, and these are puppy mills now, that sell dogs for thousands of dollars, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. It's a super rare color or breed. And that's a real issue, right? So people always say, oh, I want the blue Bulldog, or I want the blue this, or the speckled this, or whatever. And those colors are not genetically proper. So no breeder in their right mind. You should check the standards for dogs. Go to the AKC, go to akc.org, and it will tell you the standards for dogs. And for example, what their color should be, what their sizes should be, what the, all that. There's nobody, there's nothing in the AKC that's going to really show you these exotic colors, because they don't exist, right? They're not part of the standard, like white German Shepherds. Now they're called Swiss Shepherds, but it's not a standard for the breed. So they renamed it and they started breeding all these white Shepherds, which I know some people have them. They're cute and everything like that, but it's not what is standard to the breed, and you end up with a lot of health issues and temperament issues, and that's really, really going to be sad. The scam let's address the scam of, you order the dog and you don't get the dog. So you find these, first of all, you're going to look through, and as soon as you look online, in fact, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to go here, I'm going to go to Google, and I'm going to type in Labrador puppy. Now that's probably the wrong thing to pull up, because that's going to give me, and the first thing that pops up is Puppy Spot, right? So Puppy Spot is a broker for other dogs. Puppy Spot again, and then you go to the akc.org, the Labrador site. Okay, those are the Labrador site, more. But let's do this. Let me go into Google and type in something like this: French Bulldog puppies. Now I'm going to tell you right now, French Bulldog puppies, Puppy Spot again. It's kind of interesting. They've got this many ads here. The next one, another ad, French Bulldogs for sale, award-winning breed. I'm going to click on this one and tell you what I find. Okay, now here's a site, and here's this beautiful site, beautiful puppies and people with their puppies, and micro mini bulldogs, right? Now the smallest award-winning bulldogs worldwide, we're going to click on that one, right? So here we go, and we're going to see here 11 differences between a blank bulldog and a mini French bulldog. Rarity. You don't want a rare dog, because rare dogs have problems. Now they say fewer health issues, but that's obviously a lie. Distinct breeding processes, size expectations, age expectations, agility, personality, family life, separation anxiety, award-winning breed. Award-winning breed is bullshit, right? There is no award-winning breeds. There are breeds and dogs that win in things like, AKC shows. They get their titles and stuff. But award-winning breed, complete and utter bullshit, right? So, and here they tell you, so French Bulldogs can suffer from breathing trouble, severe allergies, thyroid problems, cataracts, conjunctivitis, patella luxation, cherry eye, cancer, hip dysplasia. Those are all the issues they can have. Now, you're going to tell me that you're going to order a dog like this online. You're asking for serious problems. So think of this. When you go on, if you're going to look online, first of all, I don't advocate to buy a puppy online. I really don't. The way to buy a dog is going to be, there's a lot better ways to buy a dog. And those ways are something we're going to discuss. But if you go to a site, and it's a beautiful website, it's a beautiful polished website, and they have amazing pictures and videos, and it's they've got the click here to buy now button. That should be your biggest red flag, because when you can click here to buy now and you make your payment, or you wire your funds, or they do this or do that, you're setting yourself up for problems. The best way to find a dog is always going to be through a referral of somebody who has a good dog. And it's not something you should rush into. Hey, tomorrow is your birthday. I got to get a puppy. I got to go find you a puppy. It's a recipe for absolute and utter disaster, right? So like I said, the scam doesn't bother me as much when something happens like you don't get the dog, because you lose $500-600, which is a lot of dough, but there's no dog suffering, right? And that's the newest one. Now, the other puppy scams that were really went on quite a bit were things like you don't get the dog you bought, right? So you said, oh, I ordered this whatever, French Bulldog, and it's a girl, and you end up with a boy. That's interesting, right? You didn't want that. The temperaments are different, anything like that. There's upcharges. Oh, there's extra shipping. Oh, we had extra vet visits. We had this, we had that, and they upcharge you to get the dog. They'll always tell you that this was the one we were going to hold back because this is the show winner, but we're willing to sell it. And anybody who's selling the dogs online in this kind of capacity, is not showing award-winning dogs. Because the people who are showing award-winning dogs are people who are showing them at shows, and they're going to sell them to somebody that they meet at a show or somebody that comes through a reference. Most really good breeders have already plenty of people that have spoken for the dogs they have before they breed them. Now, there might be one or two stragglers left behind, but very, very rarely. You might end up getting a whole different breed. Right? So it's rare that a breeder will breed many different breeds. So for example, on some of these, Janet and I were looking, and there is a breeder who breeds border collies and then they breed mastiffs. It would never happen, right? I can see somebody breeding border collies and Aussies, or Malinois and Turves or something like that. But it's rare. Breeders generally stick to a specific breed. And if you look online and you find one breeder that has 4 or 5 different breeds, it can be problematic. It's not a breeder that I would trust. So you can end up with sick dogs. You can end up, like I said, with deformed dogs. And they'll have a money-back guarantee. But you're not going to send that dog back. Because when you call and you say, oh, the dog's sick, they say, well, send him back. We'll put him down and we'll send you another one. You're not going to send a sick dog back knowing they're going to put it down. So those are so many problems. You need to, first of all, when you want to get a dog, you want to meet the breeder. You want to talk to the breeder on the phone and get to meet them. You want to see where they live, what they have for facility, where they're breeding. And just because somebody's breeding out of their house doesn't mean they're not a good breeder. They don't need to have a huge breeding facility. There's a lot of ethical breeders who are farmers and business people and lawyers that may be breeders as well, and may be award-winning breeders from AKC. They may have champion dogs, and they're just breeding that litter. So that's really, really important. The issue I have with the puppy scam, when they're sending you sick dogs, older dogs, way too young dogs, and they're shipping these dogs and doing all this stuff really, really early on. One is they don't really know where the dog is going. So it's just a money thing, right? They're just trying to get rid of the dogs and breed and breed and breed, and they make their money that way. There's guys who, down here in the hood that you can go and they'll sell you a puppy for $50 or $100 out of a box because they think, well, you know what? If I get 6 puppies, that's $600, and it really didn't cost them anything. They had the dogs around the house. They kept them there. They made an extra $500-600. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing for the dogs. The dogs aren't healthy. The dogs generally are not going to have a really good life. And for those people who say, well, I got my dog that way and it's healthy, good for you, right? I drove my car for years without a seatbelt, but it's not something that you should continue to do, right? You gotta use your head. And when you use your head, you get a dog that's bred by somebody who knows what they're doing, who does health checks, and who doesn't promote the suffering of the dogs that are currently the breeders. So when you have these puppy mills, there's dogs that just live in a cage, especially for the little dogs, like the little Chihuahuas and the Dachshunds and the Yorkies and the Pomeranians and all these. These dogs live in cages, crapping through the bottom, never get to stand on grass, and then they're bred over and over and over and over and over again until they're done, and then they put a bullet in their head. And if you don't think that's true, trust me, it is. You'll see it a lot I'm not going to mention the people who do it, because then people are going to say that I'm xenophobic or whatever, or prejudiced, or whatever it is. All kinds of people do it, right? They're in Missouri, they're in Pennsylvania, they're in they're in California, they're everywhere. So if the website looks really good, ask if you can pay a visit. It's worth that trip. It's worth getting in your car or getting on a plane and looking at the facility, getting to meet the parents of the dog that is breeding. That's something you should be able to do. I met Goofy's mom way before I ever got Goofy. I met Goofy's mom when she was pregnant, before she was pregnant, right? And then when she got pregnant, and I flew up. When we met Dwayne's mom, we went down to Florida and met them. I know it's expensive. I know some people can't afford it. Then just find somebody who's local. Right? But there are expenses in breeding that need to be covered. So if you just think you're going to get a puppy for $200, $300, $400, it ain't going to happen. I mean, it might happen that your friend has a dog that he can't keep and he feels bad. He just gives it to you, or you pay a couple $100. But they have clever verbiage like rehoming fees, adoption fees, placement fees, and all this stuff. And it's really just, it's a payment. And rescues generally, a rescue will be a 501c3. They'll have a nominal fee for adoption, and then they use that money to help more dogs. But again, a lot of rescues are scams too. You need to do your research. And if you're using the internet as a tool to research how to buy a dog, why not use the internet as a tool to research what kind of dog you're getting and who you're dealing with? Because that's going to be really, really critical. So remember, great websites, great slogans, fancy, beautiful, beautiful pictures are all, to me, a first red flag of some kind of scam. If they don't have documentation on the dogs, and documentation you really have to look at. Go to the AKC site, look at what the certificate should look like, and it should have a genealogy of the dogs they've had. These people should have probably shown the dogs or bred the dogs or known somebody who's titled the dogs, and look at the ability to go visit them or talk to them on the phone, and they should talk to you a lot. People who breed dogs will not shut up about their dogs. They just won't. It's obnoxious. But that's who you want to talk to. You want to talk about how long they've been doing it, where they got their first dogs, where they show, what they believe in the standards are for the breed. Do they do health testing? What are the genetics like from previous breedings? These are important things. You're bringing an animal in your home to live with you. You want to know something about this animal. So do that research. Again, I have right away huge red flags about buying a dog online. I just think it's a problem. I think it's really, really, really problematic. But if you're going to do it, do a lot of research and make sure that the dog, have somebody go visit them if they're in another state and you can get somebody to go there. Get references. Ask for people that they've sold dogs to. Call those people. If somebody called me and said, hey, so-and-so gave me your number as a reference, I'm looking at getting a dog from the breeder that you got Goofy from, I would talk to that person in a second. Because I love the breeder that bred Goofy. She did an amazing job with him, and she's a very, very ethical person. But if you can't talk to somebody, then you got a problem. You just got a problem, and you don't want to do it. It's 10 years of your life. It's better to do the work now than to do it later, because later is too late. Later, you're not going to be able to do anything, and that's where you're going to run into seriously, seriously big problems. So use the internet. Use it as a resource tool. Go to dog shows. Find out where there's going to be dog shows. Look at dog clubs. Like if you want to, for example, get a Labrador, you can go on Google and find out the Labrador Club of Southern California. There is one, by the way. And you'd go there. Find out where there's a Belgian Malinois club. Find out where there's a Dachshund club. Find out any of these things. Find out when the next AKC show is going to be in your neighborhood. And go visit. Go see them. See the dogs. Meet the dogs. I'm not saying you're going to get the perfect dog. But everything's a crapshoot. The idea really is to lessen the possibility of getting a really bad dog. And when I say bad dog, it could be an unhealthy dog. It could be a genetically bad dog as far as dysplasia, hip dysplasia, high occurrences of cancer, temperament issues, all these different things. You're only going to hurt yourself. And and by the way, the other thing too is stay out of puppy stores, right? Stay out of the stores that are in the malls that are selling dogs, because those dogs are generally not well-bred dogs. They can have all the paperwork, all the AKC paperwork, and this is where I fault the AKC, because they do issue this paperwork pretty easily to anybody who's an AKC breeder. There's very little checkup. They'll have USDA certifications, but that doesn't mean it's anything either. USDA can go check once a year, or once every 2 or 3 years, check on the breeders. Some check one time and never check again, and they still have the USDA paperwork. So none of those things are an assurance that you're going to get a good dog. The closest you're going to get to that assurance is going to be if you know somebody who's gotten a dog from them, you know the background of this breeder, you've gotten references, you've watched their dogs, you've had a dog from them before, and a person is willing to really go the distance and talk to you about their dogs and their philosophy on breeding and all that. That's going to be really, really, really critical. So don't fall for the scam. Don't buy your puppy online. If you can at all avoid it, do it. If you're going to do it, do an intense amount of research, because the best scam you're going to get into, the best one that will happen to you, is you're going to send them $500 and you're not going to get a dog. You're out $500. better than that they send you a $500 dog, which, by the way, is unheard of. If you look at the costs associated with breeding a dog, medical, health testing, raising that puppy for the first 8 weeks, if they can sell them for $500, there's something wrong. I'm telling you, just something wrong. Big red flag. And also those super high prices, like when you see, oh, it's a blue this and that, or it's a lilac this or that, it's a diluted da 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 da, and then they charge like $4,000 or $5,000 for them. Well, the reason animals are genetically malformed, whether it's by color or shape, really small or really different colors, is because there's something genetically wrong with them. And in nature, the white lion is going to get killed, or the white tiger is going to get killed, or the super small runt of the litter, mini whatever, is going to get killed. And they don't exist because they put everybody else at danger, and they're genetically not able to fend for themselves. So I know it sounds sad, but I'm just telling you, there's a lot sadder things than getting ripped off for $500. And one of those is having a really unhealthy dog that you're going to break your heart and your bank account with. Let me give you some answers to questions I got from Ask Me Anythings. First one goes out to Nas, who says, big fan of YouTube videos. We have a 4-month-old Malamute Husky called Maya, no relation, obviously. She has never shown any signs of aggression. Her obedience training is going well for the most part. The biggest issue we have with her is that she is very eager when greeting new people and even small dogs. Her first instinct is to jump and lunge toward whoever she is greeting. What's the best way we can overcome this? Throwing food on the ground works for the most part when meeting people as she finds the food while the person can pet her. Obviously, this isn't such a good idea when there are dogs around. We don't want her to think she's being rewarded for jumping. Do you have any advice? Yeah, I do. I've got advice. You need to do this. You need to tell people not to be overly excited when they meet the dog. And you need to have the dog in the presence of people who don't meet her, right? Who don't acknowledge her. Because if every single person who sees your puppy, Maya, then gets to pet your dog and play with your dog and she jumps up on him, this becomes a recurring theme for her. And she knows that every single person she sees, she's going to get to meet. And that's a red flag for dogs because it makes them too contingent on that. What she should do is learn to sit politely. You put her on a leash, you keep her on a leash. Hey, sit, good girl. And when she sits politely, you can hand her some treats and then walk her away. I did it with Goofy with several people throughout the first year. And he's fine. He's not going to just jump up and meet people. That's the best help. Throwing food on the ground is ridiculous. Paula says, my Mal is afraid of everything. Please help. Well, I don't know the dog. I don't know the age. I don't know anything about this dog. But chances are, sometimes Mals through bad breedings can be nervy. And if they're nervy, they can have all kinds of issues. And being afraid is a dog that will eventually end up triggering that fear into defensive drive and becoming aggressive. You need to get the dog socialized. You need to get the dog around people. You need to get the dog exposed to things in a positive way. Teach the dog obedience. Teach the dog some tricks, some things that the dog can do to get its mind off of being afraid, and that will generally quell that fear. Sarah says, I adopted a puppy last year and she's just turned 1 and I'm struggling to teach her to recall. She's so playful and thinks everything's a game. There's your problem, by the way. Doesn't respond to a change in tone, which has led to some dangerous situations. I feel like such a failure as a dog owner, honestly. Well, you're not yet, but you will be if you don't listen to what I'm about to tell you. When you teach your dog to come, you always have a way to reinforce it. And that's generally done through a long line, right? Like a 30-foot line. If the dog gets away from you, you say, come, pop the leash, come. The dog comes to you. Abundant praise, abundant rewards when the dog comes to you. Now, when the dog doesn't come to you, you don't change your tone. That's a mistake. You keep the tone the same and you change the situation. That means you put a correction in. That means you take the leash and you pop the dog back, come, and bring the dog back until the dog is all the way to you. Then you calmly say, that's a good girl. That's a good girl. And then you do it again. And you repeat it over and over and over. And you set the dog up in various situations so that you can teach him that. Keith says, I have a Jack Russell Terrier, great on the leash and heals well. How do you get a dog this small to nibble? Awfully hard for me to get that low. So you're talking about putting the dog onto a focused heel And the way you're going to do that, really simple. Get yourself a wooden kitchen spoon and smear some peanut butter on it, and then keep that next to you. Keep it nice and low, and the dog will stay right in that position. Super simple trick, and you can thank Janet for that advice. Martin says, very interested in how you would teach a dog not to chase a cat. Can you do a video on the subject? Well, I can't because I don't have a cat. And if I had a cat and a dog, the dog wouldn't be chasing a cat. This can be any animal that tends to run away like a car, a cat, rabbit, etc. The reason dogs chase these animals, which are all prey, right, with the exception of the cat, who's a predator, but in domestic cats, dogs see them as prey because they move very rapidly and very sporadically, is you must control the dog's prey drive. So the way we do that in a home is we have the dog, when we first bring the dog in, we have the other animal out, and we have the dog in a crate. And we let the dog see this experience and see it over and over. And because the dog can't react to it and can't start this triggered response of chasing the animal or lunging after the animal or getting triggered by the animal, the dog learns to accept that, right? The dog just learns that, okay, that's part for the course. That's the beautiful thing about dogs. They really adapt well to their environment. So if they have not seen anything run around and trigger their prey drives, and then suddenly it does, it's in there. The idea is to get the dog to see those things in a controlled environment over and over and over without the ability to get to that level. Now that's going to be really good for most dogs, but when you have a really super, super high drive dog, like a Malinois, a Border Collie, a lot of these dogs, they have super intense stress, and even sometimes Borbals and Corsos are going to be really dominantly prey-driven dogs. So you've got to be super, super careful. Most of the time, not a good idea. You can use an e-collar for it. I have, especially with rattlesnakes and deer and stuff like that, to reinforce it. But it's a lot of work, right? I mean, you're trying to kind of counter the natural inclination, the instinct of the dog, and it's not easy. Second to last question. Dwayne says, where do you recommend to do most of your training, inside or outside? The reason I ask is because the weather where I stay sucks right now, in between snowing or just freezing cold. Well, Dwayne, you can do your training inside, but you still want to go outside. You can't wait 3-4 months of just training inside and then going outside. The dog should learn, and if you live there and you decide to get a dog, then you got to toughen up and go outside and do the training with the dog outside. The big mistake people make is they get dogs and they say, oh, it's snowing outside, it's too cold for the dog, and the dog learns to crap and pee in the house. Stupid idea. You got to toughen up and you got to go outside and you got to go through it. When I get puppies, I always hope for adverse weather, rain and everything, so that I can get the dog through it, because as a puppy, it's really easy. You can make it fun, but you can teach the dog all your basic stuff and all the luring and stuff like that you can do inside, but you must absolutely get the dog outside. Last question goes out to Abhishek. I hope that's right. Big fan of yours. Your videos are really awesome. Just a small question. I have an 11-month-old German Shepherd. At which age should I start basic training, like sit, stand, come, run? You should have started that about 6 months ago, 7 months ago. 8 months ago, 9 months ago. You must start day one, right? Hand feeding, luring and shaping, teaching basic behaviors, marker training, engagement training, getting the dog to look at you. You can't start training too early using a balanced and especially positive approach. You must start it right away. Day one. The minute the dog comes to your house, hand feeding, engagement, positive associations, biomechanical movements, everything like that. Watch my videos. For those of you who are not members of my website, robertcabral.com, consider checking out the videos there. The lessons are really the best you're going to find. They're very, very thorough. We have tons of lessons on almost every single topic in dog training, from behavior to aggression to e-collar work to puppies to competitive obedience and more. Definitely worth your trip at robertcabral.com. Check me out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere. Follow me, and please make the world a better place for your dogs. Give them some training, give them some structure, and I will see you next week.